Welcome to the Education Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. This Education Podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to this Education Podcast. Great leaders don't just manage, they inspire, empower, and bring out the best in others. But how do you stay true to your identity while leading and growing a thriving team? And what does it take to make bold decisions that drive real impact? In today's episode, we sit down with Melissa Frerk, a leadership trainer, business coach, and strategic growth expert who has navigated the highs and lows of leadership and entrepreneurship. With over 2 decades of experience, Melissa has built businesses, led teams, and developed leaders who create lasting change. We'll dive into her personal journey, how she made key leadership decisions, overcame challenges, and stayed aligned with her values while building successful teams. We'll also talk about useful tips for decision-making, tips for empowering others, and insights on fostering an environment where people truly excel. So whether you're leading a team, growing a business, or looking to elevate your leadership approach, this conversation is full of wisdom, so you don't want to miss out. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to this Education Podcast. Before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you enjoy this show and get value from it, help us grow by sharing it. Send it to a friend, post it on social media, and don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. The bigger this community gets, the more powerful conversations we can bring you, or to help you unlock new levels of success in your personal and professional life. Thanks for being here, and now let's get into the episode. Okay, but my first question I always ask my guests is, share something interesting about Melissa that not many people know about. Just kind of an icebreaker.
Yeah, interesting. I have medals for cocktails. That's always a good one at parties.
Medals for cocktails. Tell us more. What is it?
So I left school a little bit unsure at that age, as a lot of people are around that age. What do I do? Where do I go? Everyone's like, oh, we should go in hospitality. You're great with people. You want to do that. So I did at the time a hotel and resort management course that was American and New Zealand, and actually almost went to America at one point. And during the course was to do cocktail competitions, which sounds great fun, but you actually don't, taste that much. My friends probably benefited a lot more than me, but where I grew is the confidence of being on stage and having to go through that judging process.
Wow, winning medals for cocktails. I love that. And where was this competition?
It was in Auckland. It was, I think it was like the food show. I think it's similar to what the food show is now. So yeah, I did it, the classics, and then one year was a low alcohol one, and then it was like an innovative one to do.
Wow, that's definitely something to brag about there. Look at that. That's very unique. So thank you for sharing that. Look, we're excited to really interview you today and have a conversation around leadership. But talking about leadership, your background is quite interesting because you got banking, you got a bit of corporate, and then, ending up with your own businesses, right? And you've only left the corporate space about 1.5 years ago. So we're keen to kind of learn about your story and, how did you end up in business? What inspired you?
Well, I think I have a husband that's very entrepreneurial. So my husband and I had a tech business that we sold to Spark almost 2 years ago now. So I think being with him, he taught me to take more risks. Obviously being in the banking industry for 21 years, you're a little bit more skeptical. I want to dot the I's, cross the T's, I want the numbers. Whereas he's a little bit, just take the leap. So together, I taught him to sort of read the numbers a little bit more and make those decisions. He taught me to take a few more risks. So we've kind of switched roles now, and I'm being the entrepreneur, and he's actually in the corporate world working for Spark. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Interesting. We were just at Spark yesterday.
Yeah.
We had a graduation there. But that's pretty cool. You've kind of switched places here. That's quite interesting.
Yes, yeah, it is quite interesting. I said the other day, how do you feel now that I'm the entrepreneur and, you're there? But he's still an entrepreneur, and I think, Spark obviously really value that sort of mindset, which is awesome. But it was quite a big shift. I think for me, leaving corporate, there was that fear, as a mother, as a wife, I'm leaving the security knowing that I've got a pay every fortnight to, okay, I need a hustle. I need to hit that, and really back yourself. There was lots of signs I wanted to, but to actually take that leap is, scary, but super exciting as well.
Take us to the moment where you started thinking about business, because let's be honest, like you worked in a sustainable career for many years.
Yes.
Like that's a big leap of faith.
100%.
Like take us to that moment where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna take that leap of faith.
I think, look, there was a couple of things. My last 5 years in the bank, I was a business training manager. So I was teaching and helping businesses start, run, and grow from their cash flow to business plan. So I was around that environment for I was a business manager before that, but being in that training role, really getting in there with those businesses, you're with that day in, day out, and you're sort of seeing other people's ideas and them living that. Obviously, being part of my husband's business too. So I think there was all the signs. Then sort of my role got disestablished at the bank, and it was sort of like, look, this is now or never. This is my opportunity to take the leap. And there was a few other signs. I always go by gut feel, whatever people's faith are. But I think there was a few signs that were nudging me to go, come on, this is your time, do it,
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to that tech business that you guys sold to Spark, because I feel like that is something, we've got to poke at for a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Are we allowed to ask what that tech business was?
Yeah, it's a droid, so environmental IoT, so air quality, water quality, really cool stuff, helping the environment out there. Yeah.
Wow, and Spark took interest in it and bought it.
Yes, yeah.
How much did they buy for? No, you don't have to share that. You don't have to share that, but that's a huge compliment for a big brand like Spark to buy your business.
Oh, massive.
That's got to give you guys a lot of confidence to what's the next best thing. Yep. So tell us, now you've got several businesses. One of them is Polish, and that's a consulting business focused on leadership, especially in the corporate space. Tell us why leadership? How did you land there?
Leadership's always been a passion of mine. I really like helping people see the sparkle and the shine within them. Hence sort of a little bit where Polish came from. But, I really like to help people, see that in themselves, because I think the answer's already in you. And I know it's a bit cliche to say that, but I think a good coach and a good leader will help you see that. And then that helps you, your business, and the community in turn.
Nice. So take us into the experience of a participant who is going through some of your programs. Where do you start? How do you help them on that leadership journey and continue to grow?
Yeah, there's multiple ways. Something at the moment that I'm launching is a new 12-week program, because I really think it's not just a set and forget when you do any training. So I'm launching a 12-week program to help people starting a business to go through and really work through all the stages. It's not just finances. Have you got a good support team? What's your mindset like? Are you managing your health and where you are? What's the balance? How do you juggle that? And, still not sure the 100% answer of balance, but, talking through that and making sure, and also, you don't feel alone. If you're leaving corporate, you've got like 50 teams that do your marketing, do this. You go start your own business, next minute you're wearing 50 hats. So how are you going to do that and manage those things and tools that are out there for yourself?
Yeah. If you mentioned your 12-week program, but if you could build a program again from scratch, from the ground up, and you were to focus on 3 main topics, what would they be?
Ooh, 3 topics.
I know there's many. If we could narrow it down to 3, what would be those core?
The top one I always like to focus on is growth mindset, or your mindset. So fixed versus growth mindset. So, you're going to come across anything, whether it's life or business or you're a parent, and looking at challenges as opportunities. Looking at a failure as a learn. And it's always, to me, three big things I took: win, learn, change. But it's also the journey. So how did I get here, or how did I not get there, and what got in the way? So growth mindset and fixed mindset would be one. I really think around your values. So having great values personally and within the business, a really good foundation, as well as your vision and your mission. So, I got in the car today, I knew I was coming here, right? If I don't put the direction in, where am I driving? You just drive around in circles. You sort of don't know where you're going. So, so in a business, you need that direction. Staff need that direction for you to get there and reach that. And third, I guess, would be setting goals and making sure that they're smart. So, having that real to tie in those three.
And obviously you work a lot in the corporate space, right, in terms of leadership. Do you work a lot with the C-suite as well?
Yeah, I'm really keen to sort of work on that within Polish as well. I've done some my governance course with the IOD to build on my skills. So really keen to look at that in the future. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And from your perspective, what is the difference between a good leader and a great leader?
Yeah, I think good leaders and great leaders, it really comes down to, like, one thing I always said: I'm not afraid if you want my job. Okay, so I almost think, and this is probably a bit controversial, but I think a great leader will do yourself out of a job to a certain degree. So you upskilling your team, you're always helping them get to that next stage, because you should be, I always say, be the best version of yourself every day. So how can you be better? How do you grow? How can you continuously learn and look at something different for yourself, learning from them and then learning from you as a two-way street. So I think as a leader, if you can upskill everyone in your team, and they might want to go sideways, and it might not want leadership, but not being afraid of that. Whereas I think some people are so afraid to delegate and share that in teams, it can get in the way of the growth of the business and the individuals.
Yeah, I love that. So obviously, it reminds me of this saying, don't see people as who they are, but see them as who they can become.
100%, yeah.
Right, and if that's how you look at people, everything that you do is focused on supporting them to help them become who you envision them to be.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about bringing out the best in people, because that's what leaders do, right? Like we were talking about high-performing teams here, right? How does a leader take a team to the next level?
I think you've got to build that growth mindset in the team. And by that is, and that with having that growth mindset in the team, people, they see a problem, it's an opportunity. Let's look at some solutions. And I was always like, that's fine if there is a problem or an opportunity, but bring me a solution. Maybe it's not the one that we're going to go with, but at least you get that problem-solving mindset within the team. So that, and you create this team where, too, it's okay to fail. As we share it, we pick each other up, and everyone's doing that. But it takes time to build that culture and letting people know, because sharing that vulnerability, one, as a leader. So I think that was a big learn in my career, is actually showing people that sometimes I don't get it right, because I'm human, and going, yes, I didn't get that right, and I'm sorry as well, and having that vulnerability, and to what level depends on the environment and where you're at. And then that shows them that you're real, and they can share those as well with you. So I was always like, look, if something's happened, come tell me, we'll work it out. And it really breaks down those barriers of anything in the team, and then you know what's going on. And I think you empower people within in the team. So you give them the skills, but also the space. So not micromanaging the team, trusting in that person, that you've given them the training. They know where to go. They can do stuff. And if they don't quite get it right, or to your standard too, because that's a lot of the time I see in leadership. It's like you might have done that role, and then it's like, oh, well, that's not how I did it, or that's not quite to the right standard. So you do have to learn to let go a little bit, which it's not easy to do, and it takes time as well to grow as a leader in those environments.
I love that, Melissa. Our audience loves examples, and case studies. Now, you don't have to mention names and numbers.
Yes.
But do you have an example, maybe a story of someone who's gone through your program, developed this growth mindset, all the skills, and just experienced this huge positive transformation?
Yeah, I think if I think of a gentleman I work with came to me and just, I saw so much potential in them, but they just didn't see it. It was like we were wearing different sunglasses, and it was just kind of turning the mirror back for him to see that and kind of really going, to believe in himself and really sort of building that growth mindset for him internally and going through it. You actually do have these skills, and it really turned around his career, but also his family life, because I think the mana in him, I think he just stood differently once he saw this potential that I saw within him. And this is what I really like going through with an individual I'm working with. As I say, it's in them, but it's just helping them to sort of flip the mirror and them actually to see what I see, because a lot of the time they're like, no, and it's like you go through week by week and work together, and it's just little incremental steps, like like the Kaizen thing. I don't know if you know much, like Kaizen, it's making small steps or small changes. It's not about building Rome in a day, but little incremental steps that you get there to see that change.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a barrier where people experience, self-doubt. They this barrier doesn't allow them to kind of see the potential in themselves. But obviously you saw the potential in this gentleman. Why do people struggle with that? Why do they struggle with self-doubt and not recognizing the potential in themselves?
I think there's two things. I think, for a long time, and I think there is a shift in New Zealand. We've had a bit of this tall poppy syndrome, and that's a little bit where imposter syndrome comes from. There's that, I don't want to be different, so I just want to fit in. Like, I want to be a Smurf, or however you like to use one analogy, like everyone else, because if I step up and stand out, I got told, at one point, you're not a normal banker, you wear bright colours, you don't wear navy to work every day. And I was like, well, what does that mean? So I think, it's okay to challenge the norm, but it's the way you do it. One of my amazing mentors, and I think, mentors are so important for everyone, he brought me into his leadership team because he said, I like how you question things. But because I'd go, but why? And I say, it's like, our kids do it. But why is the grass growing? Or why is the man mowing the lawns or the lady mowing the lawns? Because the grass is long. Why is the grass long? You ask that continuous question.
I like that. Well, that's an art.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Leaders who know how to ask questions, but also leaders who know how to listen to the answers.
Yes.
As well is just as important. So the communication skills are just as important as well.
100.
Tell us a little bit about women in leadership.
Yes.
There's this huge push for diversity and equity. I guess, from your perspective, what's some advice that you can give to women out there and leadership?
Yeah, look, I think it's changing. And the way I see diversity, as I say, it's diversity of skills and diversity of thought. So I think, encouraging that different way of thinking and the different skills across that, because I worked in, business banking for a long time, and I was, there was one of the only female business managers for a really long time. And I never forget, a client rung and said, I don't want her because she's female, basically, was the conversation that happened. But I think for women in leadership, it's, owning what you do, knowing your skills, believing in yourself, and maybe it's having a mentor, a woman that's been in leadership before you that can help you. Or, it doesn't, mentor doesn't have to be a woman, it can be a man, but having that mentor to sometimes talk through those doubts, outside of your role, outside of even your industry, can be really, really helpful, because that's what's helped me at times, having a mentor just going, oh, I'm not sure, should I do this role? I'm this is the decision, and just talking through it can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. Do all leaders have titles?
No.
You don't have to have a title to be a leader.
No. No, and I think you can lead up, you can lead down, you can lead sideways. I think, I've been talking and teaching recently and to this person, and I said, and they didn't feel like that what they were getting from their leader. And I said, why don't you lead them and help them with what you've learnt working with me? And they're like, but can I do that? And I said, well, why can't you? Where does it say that we can't? And I think that's that continuous learning. But no, I don't think you need a title. And does a title mean that you're a leader? Just because you have the title, it's that kind of respect and that hierarchy piece, right?
Yeah, right. If leadership is not about a title, then what is leadership, like in your opinion?
Yeah, I think leadership is, I think, leadership is a number of things, but I think when you can really communicate to a group of people, so you, like to your point, really good communication, but also that really important active listening. When I teach active listening, I sometimes call it the sit on your hands approach, because it's a bit of an action to sometimes if you're a talker, like look, we talk and present, and we've done it in our jobs. Sometimes just to be quiet, especially when it's something that you haven't done, I say to people, is that action of sitting on your hands to make yourself be aware of it. And I think being able to explain the why. So why are we doing this? What's our vision? Where are we going? So, can you articulate that? And if you can, people will follow. Like that why is such a key point of getting that message through.
Yeah. And what's your tips around communicating that why?
Yeah.
And how to get people support and, buy-in?
Yeah, I think you need to understand the team around you and the people around you. So I think, a lot of us don't like change, unfortunately. People get afraid of it for many reasons. We can be creatures of habit, We drive to the supermarket, we'll park in a similar car park. We'll go to the gym, we'll use a similar locker. But, getting out of your comfort zone is where the real magic happens for people. So I think acknowledging it's okay for people to be afraid, but how do you flip that into some excitement? But when you explain the why, kind of understanding your audience to get that. So you need to know the vision of where you're going, but also understand who you're giving that why to, and potentially what their fears could be or their, objections to it. And then, who's going to be my early adopters and who's going to be my naysayers. And those are the two groups I always look for to get on board first, because the ones in the middle, if you can get the top and the bottom, they'll usually come with you.
Hey, quick break. If you're an employer or business owner who's passionate about investing in your people, Zeducation can help. We're a trusted training provider offering literacy and numeracy programs to build essential skills alongside leadership, communication, conflict management, and even tech training in Microsoft Excel and AI. We also provide financial education on budgeting, home ownership, and retirement, as well as personal well-being programs. Plus, we deliver cultural diversity training to help create more inclusive and high-performing workplaces. Not sure what your people need? That's okay. We can help with that too. We offer needs analysis to identify skill gaps and ensure all training aligns with your business goals, developing the right capabilities to drive real success. What makes us even more cooler? We're a proudly Pacifica and Māori-owned business, and we know how to truly engage and empower our people. So if you're ready to level up your team, get in touch with us today at www.zeducation.co.nz. Now, back to the episode. Everyone responds to change differently because change is an individual experience. And I think a leader recognizes that and embraces that. So I want to ask a question around common mistakes that leaders make. Okay, this is part of building our self-awareness. And potentially avoiding some of those pitfalls. But what have you seen as some of the common mistakes that leaders make that they should avoid?
Common mistakes. Ooh. I think the why has to be a big one. And that's something, hand on heart, that I know early in my leadership journey that I really had to work on. And, I got people in my team and I'd be, hey, I'm going to do this and announce this in the meeting. And then can you just, I'd like to ask for your feedback after. So I'd go approach the staff member after and just go like, how do you think? Do you think everyone got it? And and I would ask them, and also help build that relationship with, they're like my 2IC, which was greatly appreciated, but just checking in. I think the other part is really working on your team's development and giving your team members time. So doing what I call a one-on-one, and this is not an annual performance appraisal, because a lot of people go, oh, well, I do my appraisal. I was like, well, that's where you get a pay rise. That's not actually focusing on your development, where you're going in the company. How can I support you? What do you need for me to support you? So I think doing that and showing team members, I did it every month with my team members, and I never changed the time unless I really had to. And that showed them that they're important, because I see a lot of the time it's like managers go, well, I don't have time. And I was like, well, what does that say to your staff member if you don't allow them the time?
Yeah, because if it's important, you'll make time, right?
100%.
Take us to that conversation where you are having that one-on-one. Like, what's the conversation sound like? So it's focused on their development.
Yeah, so the way I look at one-on-ones is it's really about their time with me as their leader. So it's really focused, it's them driving it and leading that time. And that's, I think, it's, if it's something quite new to a team, so if you've just come in and leading that team, you might have to help them and coach them a little bit because they might not be used to it. But once I've been in a team for a little while, they would come to me with what they've been working on, what they want to do for their development, and how I can support them. Then we would discuss that. If it was early on in a team, obviously I'd help kind of coach and lead that with them, but it's very much about their time with me and what support they need from me for their development and where they want to go in the company or the branch or the business or what is it you're running.
Nice. But I think the main thing there is that having that consistent conversation about it, because it shows that you're still thinking about it and you're still supporting them. You got their
100%.
back.
Yep.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is like right at the beginning, what's your goals, what's your dreams, and you never have that conversation again.
100%. Or
It's
you
like
forget.
you feel forgotten.
Yeah.
You feel like you're just a number, right?
Yeah. Or you forget. You don't go, so last month we talked about you really want to work on this. How's, but it shows that you've remembered or, you've checked in. Even if you checked in about their family members and do you know their kids' names? Do you know, what's going on for them? I had, staff members and their kids started school and I was like, well, do you need to start a little bit later that week? And they're, I was like, of course, it's their first year at school. It's so important, just understanding things like that and checking in, I think, too. With what's going on, or if they've, had you go through tough times, people lose loved ones, how do you support them and things like that?
Yeah. We had the vice captain of the All Black Sevens on the podcast, and we asked him a similar question. What is it that you do to help bring out the best in your team? And he pretty much said it in his own words. What you said was, it's what you do off the field, not just on the field. Like off the field, he says, off the field, I catch up with them and I get to know them. What drives them? What's their why? Get to know their family, because all of that influences how they play on the field.
100%.
Which I found quite interesting, because it's about the connection, it's about the trust, it's about the unity, right? But in it, it's like me as a leader, I want to know so that I know how to best support you with your dreams and aspirations. Yeah. Just as important as the team's development, right? Leaders got to care about that. Just as important as that is the leader's own personal development.
Yes.
What's some advice around that? Because we believe that, leaders should never stop learning.
Yes.
But we also know that sometimes they get busy, and yes, they are giving their time and investing a lot in other people, but they also need to invest in themselves. Tell us, some tips around personal development for leaders and how can they fit that in?
Yeah, 100%. Look, you can't get more than 24 hours in a day. I keep trying. But I think, it's things like micro-learning. So, listening to a podcast. So, I had just over an hour's drive today. So, I was listening to the Powerhouse Diaries, which is a great one. Friends just started. And so you can put a podcast on. So I was listening to that in the car. You could do a quick module online if you're not driving it on your phone or something like that. The other things I find quite good is going to a networking group, something like that. Now, it could be networking online as well, or you could go to a face-to-face one, but, talking to others. And it can be a group set up for yourself as well. Like I've sometimes find, doing co-petition, not competition, like with Karen, that I'm working with on the workshops and Horizon. We're working together, but it all started by actually doing a bit of networking first. How can I help you? How can you help me? So you can continuously do that. And then little things like, I don't know, Headway is quite a good one I quite like. It gives you all the little short reads of books, and then if I really like it, then I can go read the whole book.
Yeah. Can you recommend any books for leaders that, maybe your top ones, and maybe podcasts as well?
Yeah, so the Powerhouse Diaries podcast is what I'm listening to at the moment. So that's really, really great, and lots of powerhouse women that have started in business, and Yale has started it, which is really cool. And it really strips back and it talks about the real stuff. So, she always says the blood, sweat, tears, and margaritas, but, that even the tough times in business as well. Because sometimes, with the world of Instagram, we see we're all dressed up, but we don't see the times when we're like, what am I doing? Is this the right thing to do? Or like I've actually been reading a book on women and fasting at the moment. So I was like, it's not about leadership, but that's my fitness sort of thing. But I think, it's also keeping your mindset and wellness. So I've been reading that sort of from that angle. And then I think, another book. Can't quite think of a third thing off the top of my head. It was a book, a podcast.
Or just books and podcasts.
Yeah, books and podcasts.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's some really good ones there that we could recommend for our audience. That's cool. Now, we believe that leaders are got to, obviously be good at problem solving and making decisions.
Yes.
And the higher you go up in the corporate ladder, the bigger problems you get to solve and the big decisions that you got to make, right? So it's a skill that leaders need to develop, right? If a leader who's listening to the podcast right now wants to get better at decision making, what's some tips around that?
Decision making. I think when you look at decision making, I think there's a whole, there's different parts to it, right? So there's looking at problem solving. Do you understand problem solving? And looking at that, there's a lot of stuff around customer centric pieces as well. So it could, there's probably so many pieces to that. There's the numbers piece. I think with decision making, I think, there's a few parts to it, but do you know the data that you need? Is it financial? Is it, the problem solving piece? Is it the customer centric piece? So do you actually understand the data that you need, and are you getting the right data? Then with that data, do you know how to read the data? So, a lot of, businesses I talk to, particularly, coming from my finance background, they're like, I don't like numbers, So, but you own a business. You need to know. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't even need to be a bookkeeper, but you need to know how to read your financials or your cash flow to make the right decisions. And, I think that's the thing that people get a bit confused with. So same with decision making, do you know how to read that data, and do you know where to get that data to make the right decision? So I think it's understanding and having a process. And then a little bit, and it might be questioned, but, people are a little bit of a gut feel. So there's a bit of, some people argue it comes with experience, but sometimes you just know in your gut something's just not right. You need to dig a little bit deeper and maybe understand that and work through that as well in your decision making.
Yeah, I think some people call that your intuition.
Yeah.
Your gut feeling.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's times, like you said, where you got to make informed or rational decisions. So having the right information and data, especially if you're making decisions that might cost a lot of money or carry a lot of risk, it's important that you be as rational as possible and well informed as well. What's your thoughts around AI? I ask almost every guest that comes onto this podcast because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. In fact, it's the future. It's the now and the future, and it's just going to keep ramping up.
Yeah.
How can a leader embrace something like AI to help them become a better leader?
AI to become a better leader? I think... it's, I guess, technology. I had technology business with my husband, and I think technology, we can become scared of it, but I think it's part of where we're going, right? So it's part of the change. But I think it's learning how do we make it, use AI in the right ways. So to be a better leader, I go, right, so a lot of leaders come to me and go, I just don't have enough time now. I can't do a one-on-one because I don't have time. I'm like, okay. So I did a workshop last year. I was down in Invercargill, and I was like, okay. And we actually pivoted because we were talking about doing a good one-on-one, and then I just kept getting this roadblock. Well, we don't have time. I was like, okay, cool. So we whiteboarded, and I said, give me everything that gets in the way. So we just wrote everything on the whiteboard. And then I went one by one, and we crossed it all off. I said, so if we did this, could we get rid of it? And a bit like AI, I go, how can you use it to be more efficient? Could you, so I use Google Meet a lot. You've got Gemini, so Gemini is very similar to ChatGPT. If you and I had a Google Meet, I can get it to take notes. Don't have to get it, and then it does the notes, does the summary. So boom, there we go. I've got that at the end of our meeting. I'm not having to write a whole email to you of it and check my memory or even write notes. I can actively listen to you the whole meeting, and then I can send you a summary message, maybe change a few things. That's it, done. So I'm not spending a lot of time. Great. So I might have got 15 minutes, half an hour back for some people because that's already done. So I think using things like that for AI is really clever. You could use Gemini's great. You can get paid ones within an industry, and you can go, can you look up Mr. Smith and the last conversations I had with Mr. Smith? It'll go through all my files and it'll pick that up. Imagine if I had to do that. So I think, going, how can I use it to get time for things that are really important, like my big rocks in the business, the strategy, the people, and all those things.
Yeah, I love that. Well, there's so much there. It can just help you, especially with decision making.
Yeah.
Or what you talked about earlier, gather the information that you need. Even just prepare for a meeting. If you know you've got a meeting that's coming up that's really important, and you can use AI to help you do background research, or just, hey, look, I'm thinking about this. This is what we're going to discuss in the meeting. Just using it to bounce ideas.
Yeah.
So you go in with a few perspectives.
Yes, 100%. But always pay for it because you get more security, than if the free one. So just be careful, I'd be saying, if you're using free versions and you've got a great new idea, be careful what you're making public of your, IP.
The whole privacy thing, right? Yeah, that's I guess that's the big question, especially when it comes to like AI feeding it your data. Now, look, as we're drawing close to the end of the podcast, we've learned so much about leadership, but I want to come back to your leadership, your journey.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot that we could learn there, and I don't feel like we've digged there enough. But in terms of your personal journey, your leadership journey, tell us a little bit about that. And then also about like, what do you do as a leader to make sure that you're staying ahead of the game?
Yeah. So for me, obviously, look, my 21 years at ANZ, so it was originally National Bank, was a really great foundation for me for that. So I started, as a teller, or I think it was called a customer service officer on the counter, and worked my way through lots of different roles and leadership roles, worked through the biggest brand and technology change. So when ANZ brought National Bank, they also changed the whole system within the bank. So I had quite a big team on our 800 number that had to work through that. Also was under NDA because the brand changed, so I couldn't tell my team, which is really hard when you kind of have a close team that genuinely know you and you're going into lots of closed door meetings. What's going on? Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on. And you're trying to be very masked about it. Plus my role got disestablished at the same time because there was two of us in the role. So it was a very big, personally, emotionally, and also remembering, it's a really big growth period for me as a leader, but also, like learning things like, and reminding yourself, I've heard about this brand change in quite a few meetings, and I'm about to go tell my team that have never heard it. Because, and this is kind of, I share this a lot when I'm teaching because, like you said, stories are so important. And I think that's how we get lessons across and we help each other grow in history or whatever it is. But going, I had to remember that I'd heard so many times and I had gone through my own mental and kind of emotional thing that this change was happening, but my team hadn't heard it. So making sure that I was almost showing my first reaction emotions to them and not acting like it didn't matter. Because of course it did. So just remembering those sort of things in those times for yourself and in those moments. And And, so I got lots of growth through that period in time there, and I'm forever grateful for that. And then when I decided, so my role got disestablished, but I also lost my dad and my best friend at the same time. So I was dealing with grief at the same time, which, look, if anyone's ever had it, condolences, but it's a massive thing. So, but I also went through, and I'm very grateful for my mentor, but he said, you're going to have to grieve for ANZ Mel and the identity that you've had for 21 years. And I hadn't quite seen this, but he said, you're going to have to grieve for that because you're now spreading your wings. And not to say like I said, I'm forever grateful, but that Mel's gone. You're going to have to grieve for that. And it was a real pivotal moment for me to go, oh yeah, I'm going to have to grieve for that. So interesting that the stars aligned at the same time as grieving for my dad, and with serendipity and that, but working through that process to go through was a big learn for me, and having that support of that mentor through that period too.
Wow. That's a lot of challenges, but obviously, through it all, you're able to use it to help grow and learn something there. What's your advice for those? Because you're going to have to grieve through this. Now that coming from someone could sound a little bit like, what? No, I don't have to. So I could imagine someone being defensive, like, no, I don't have to grieve.
Yes.
Why is it important to go through that grieving process? The benefits.
Yeah, and look, you can label it how you want to frame it up, and I think I can understand going, oh, I don't need to do that, but I think it's understanding your identity, and that however your identity, your personal brand, and how much our careers, our jobs do get intertwined with that. And for a long time I ate, slept, breathed the ANZ values that I believed in, and the mission, and helping businesses grow and all those sort of things. So and then it's like, well, who am I when I stand out of that? What do I what are my values, and I re-looked at my personal values, and I reassessed that, and then what is it that I really want to achieve and polish and do that for myself, because and working that out. And it took a little while. I'm not going to say it didn't. There was a bit of, maybe I should just get a job. Maybe that's the right thing to do, having that belief in yourself, and having that right support network, like I said, to help you go, right, you are on the right track, and it's okay to have those doubts and, question what you're doing.
Yeah. Can we touch on that identity piece? Because I feel
Yes.
like there's something there.
Yes.
And it's important for people who are listening to this podcast, especially if you're a leader within an organization. Some people, like what you said, tie the identity to this role, to this business. Is that okay to do that? And also, if someone's going through identity a journey, trying to figure self-discovery, like how do they go about crafting their identity in the right way?
Yeah, I think, look, a lot of who we are starts with where we came from, our values and our beliefs from our parents, our grandparents. There's a lot in business. We talk of the sum of 5, sum of 7. Your main group around you. But coming back to your question, is it okay to live by those values? Of course it is. I always say, if you're looking where you're looking for work, what's the business mission and values? Because it's really hard to go and work for a firm if you don't believe where they're going and their values, right? So I really believed in, helping businesses grow, and that's where, I don't think I could have worked there for 21 years if I didn't believe in that. Their I care values, the integrity, all of those, collaboration, and, the values within it. I did align with that, and that's what I guess carried me through for so long. And I think it really helped when I ran branches. I had regional managers that said, treat the branch like your own business, and I think that was one of the keys to success, because okay, of course there's stuff inside and we can go through the details, but at the end of the day it was my branch and I treated it as my branch, and I think that led to a lot of success because the pride and the mana and all the things that I took with it. You know, my team, I was like, you know, you're my work far now. You know, we're very much together on this. And if we, you know, if every one of us succeeds, we all succeed together. So I think it's totally okay. And I think, you know, if you are looking at places to work, do you look up their values? Have you gone to their website? You know, have you done your background? Like you said, you did some research on me. Did you check those people out? I used to be impressed if I interviewed someone and they'd gone and looked me up on LinkedIn and people go, oh, isn't that weird? And I said, no, I'm really impressed because they want to see what sort of leader I am. So, you know, do your research too on both sides.
Yeah. And I guess the bridge or the connection there that you mentioned is that part of your identity is the values that you believe in. Because the values aren't just things that you believe in or they're part of who you are.
100%.
Right? Like honesty, integrity, love, you know. And I really like that. So I think that's a good point for our audience to understand that, you know, look at your values. Like no matter where you go. You know, it's not about tying your identity so much to a title or to the business. It might be because the values resonate so much with you.
Yeah.
You feel a connection here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, it just helps, I think, when you have values too, to making decisions. So, you know, whether in life or business, does this align with my values? You know, should I be working with this client? Is this the sort of client or is this the company? Because you'll know, and that sometimes people go, what's not right? It's probably not aligning to your values.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, you know, if you're not staying true to your values, then you're not staying true to who you are.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, honesty is one of your values and you end up lying, you're going to feel off. You're going to feel bad. You're not going to feel like you're your authentic self.
Exactly.
So it's like, what are those values and like living by it? Like you won't sacrifice it for anything.
No.
Those are your core values and a part of who you are.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And like you mentioned, your values are your compass when it comes to making decisions in the direction that you take in life. I love that. Look, thank you so much. We've talked, you know, a lot about leadership, and it was so cool to learn a little bit about your journey and your story as well. We can kind of feel why you're so passionate about this topic and why you're so passionate about developing the leaders and others. If there's one key message that you want to leave with our audience today from our conversation, what would that be?
I think it's just remembering you as an individual aren't going to always have all the answers. So it's really having that, being okay to not have all the answers and, you know, actually asking for help. So having a good support network around you, because that will be what gets you through.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And if people want to learn more about Polish and get some support around leadership development and the work that you do, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, you can jump onto the Polish website. So it's www.polish.nz, or I'll follow me on LinkedIn. Love to see you there, or at one of the upcoming events at Horizon would be wonderful. 20th of March is our first one with Horizon. So all the details are on LinkedIn that you can find, or reach out, drop me a message, drop me a follow. Love to discuss and connect with you.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much for being generous with your time, and your insights will much better for it. All the best, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. If this conversation gave you something valuable, do me a favor, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. This show is all about helping you unleash your greatness, and the more we grow, the more we can bring you content that truly makes an impact. Thanks for being part of the Education Podcast. Let's keep pushing forward, and I'll see you next time.